Hi, my name's Eryka. I'm 28 years old. Been married to my husband Mason for almost 10 years, and I have a 15-year-old stepdaughter, a 2-year-old daughter, and another baby on the way. Mason is an arborist, and we own a tree care company together here in Auburn, Indiana. And God has had us on a wild journey over the last 10 years, and literally in every area, it's been a wild journey. So, what I'm going to focus on today is just the health journey that He's had me on, and as a result of the journeys that He's had us on, like I'm more confident that His faithfulness and goodness is there for me and for everyone. And it's really been a journey of us growing in intimacy and dependence on the Lord. And so, yeah, really thankful for that and really thankful to be here. I would say like I had a pretty great childhood. Like my parents are like together. I grew up. They started going to church when I was in like first grade. Um, like always super involved parents. Like no one's perfect, obviously, but like if you look at my childhood, it's not like, ooh, what happened to that kid? Like my parents are amazing. Like my overall like memories and experience in my childhood is like I had parents that loved me, that showed up for me, that cared about me. But I was so naive to like what was actually like the fights and the struggles in the world because everything had been quote easy. Like I'd been healthy my whole life. I had the good grades. I got into the school I wanted. Like everything was fine and got married young, like all like what everything's vibing. Like this is great. I'm in college, like doing the things I want to do, going to school for what I want to do. And then every yeah, like just slowly started to fade away when you realize like, oh, actually co-parenting is really hard. Oh, marriage is really hard. Chronic health is really hard. Running a business is really hard. Like, wow, actually life's just really hard. 2015, I was 19 years old, and it's Q 2017, and I was really sick all the time. No one knew what was going on. I just kind of always chalked it up to something else, college, stress, life, whatever. And 2018, I finally saw a doctor, and that started multiple years of misdiagnosis and multiple years of pain and unknown answers. And I remember distinctly, like the end of 2018, like going to one of my doctor's appointments, like surgery consult, and just feeling like I got this word from God that said, I've heard your prayers and I've seen your tears and I'll heal you. And so kind of logged that in the back of my mind, but still walked into this doctor's appointment, not really sure what that meant. So fast forward 2019, I had a bowel resection and I got a diagnosis officially correct, and it was Crohn's. Not really news anyone wants to hear, and not really a journey that I was willing to walk down, and was really starting to wrestle with God, like, hey, you gave me this verse that you healed me, and this is not that. And so, yeah, it kind of started a long journey for us. And the surgery itself was a miracle. I didn't know at the time how sick I truly was, but the surgeon said afterwards that he said it was a miracle that I was alive and that I wasn't in the ER and that this wasn't an emergency surgery. And so then we fast forward to 2020, and I have another scope, and at this point, they can't really see anything still, which is pretty common after your first resection scope, that they just couldn't really get a full picture. So it doesn't mean things were bad, but they couldn't prove that things were good. They just were. And then spring 2021 continues to roll around, and results were looking better. And I think this was another turning point in our journey where we spent the next 2 years then getting, yes, you're in remission. No, you're not. Yes, you are. No, you're not. Yes, you are. No, you're not. And I think that was really hard for me, feeling like healing was at the hand and then taken away and given to me and taken away because of more misdiagnosis and more incorrect information. Fast forward to the fall of 2021, we get the go ahead that I'm finally actually things are looking good. And they gave us the go ahead to start a family, which was a miracle again, because they weren't sure we'd ever have kids given how bad my health was. And ended up getting pregnant with our sweet Izzy about 2 weeks later. And so that was another miracle, and felt like we got Izzy's name in a dream from the Lord that just means God's faithfulness and promise. That pregnancy was marked with probably the most sick I've ever been in my whole life. And so all the progress we thought we made, we weren't really making. And then I wasn't really sure what that looked like. Had another traumatic birth situation, and just a lot of it, just more confirmation that my health was not the way that God intended it. So then that was June of 2022. Fast forward to summer of 2023, I had another scope, and they said that the damage that this pregnancy had done was not ideal, and that I needed to do something different. Otherwise, I'd be back having surgery again in 5 years. I got put on a biologic at that point, and that's something I'll be on forever, probably until, um, yeah, I don't know. I guess just forever. It's not, which isn't really something anyone wants to hear either. And so, but at that point, I didn't want to go back to another surgery. I didn't want to do that again. And then this last spring, I had another scope, and this was the first time since 2017 that I'd had results that didn't just look good or looked better, but that were like good, good, good. And what I was told by my doctor was that the disease looks better than your previous scope. And he's like, you don't ever see that. Like, that doesn't happen. And so, for the first time ever, I was getting clear pathology, clear symptoms, totally manageable. My doctor told me, I don't think this will ever be a problem for you again. And that was a wild experience because, yeah, back in 2018, when I felt like I heard God say, like, I've healed you, like, I didn't think that was going to be in 2024. Like, I thought that every single time I showed up for an appointment, like, it should have been that day or that time, and it wasn't, and it wasn't, and it wasn't. And then I think what hit me the most out of, like, the healing journey was just like, wow, like, God, this is a miracle. And I've seen your miracles over and over and over again. But, like, what I thought would have been my response would have been the big happy ending. Like, you're healed, everything's better. But that is actually, like, the turning point of me really realizing that, like, I couldn't accept that news. It wasn't possible that I could have finally been healed. And what I was realizing when I was digging in deeper is that I wasn't worthy of it. I felt like I wasn't worthy of it. What I found myself saying was like, God, didn't you see my journaling these last few months? Didn't you see all the ways I'd given up? Sickness was just part of my story. To the point that a couple of months prior, I'd gotten my wisdom teeth out, which really isn't that big of a deal, but it's not that fun. And I'd been told that, like, hey, 2% of people have prolonged numbness in your mouth. And was like, great, count me in. Like, I'm part of the 2% that medically everything goes wrong. And it did. It's still numb today. It was back in April. And it's getting better. It'll be fine. But I'd realized in that I hadn't prayed for God to heal that a single time. And I realized it's because I figured that there was no point in praying because I hadn't worked for anything else. I'd adopted a suck it up and move on mentality. I had no faith left that healing was available and that God was for my health. That's a really crappy place to be in. In the midst of all that journaling, that's when you chose to heal me, God. Like, in the midst of me, I would say it's been an up and down journey over all of those years of, like, I have faith, I have no faith. I have faith, I have no faith. But, like, at the worst of my, like, lack of faith, like, God, that's when you decided to show up. I was immediately flooded then at that point with, like, all the guilt and lies and shame, which obviously isn't from God. But that hit really hard. And really thankful that during that same time, like, God doesn't do any of these things by mistake. His timing's always perfect. I had just signed up for a freedom masterclass. And days prior to that, I'd received a tool about realigning my identity. And I knew that I had some ugly confessions that I found as I was pouring myself out to the Lord and, like, confessing that, like, I thought my prayers fell on deaf ears. I felt like I wasn't worthy of healing. I felt like God already had it all sorted out, so there was no point in asking. I believed that God wanted healing for other people, but definitely not for me. After confessing these things, I asked God to fill me with the truth, and a song came on that I'd never heard before, and I immediately started sobbing. And it was called Don't Stop Praying by Matthew West. And I'll just read a couple of the lyrics for you guys, but it said, what's your impossible, the place you need a miracle? What's got you barely hanging by a single thread? What looks so hopeless now and weighs down your heart with doubt? You beg for breakthrough, but there's no sign of breakthrough yet. When you've cried and you've cried till your tears run dry, the answer won't come and you don't know why. You wonder if you can bow your head even one more time. But don't stop praying and don't stop calling on Jesus' name. Keep on pounding on heaven's door and let your knees wear out the floor. Don't stop believing, because mountains move with just a little faith, and your Father's heard every single word you're saying. Don't stop praying. And Yeah, I was just immediately moved to tears, like, "Okay, God, like, I hear you, but I really don't feel like praying, and I don't even really know how to re-enter that realm because I've shut it off for so long." And so, the song, I feel like every time I got in the car for the next, like, 3 weeks, I heard it every single time, and I drive a lot. Um, so I know that it's not because the radio plays it that much. But I feel like that gave me enough hope to take the next step, and the next step was more confessions. More ugly stuff that I didn't want to peel back and that I honestly didn't even know was there. But the next confession was I thought it was too good to be true. I had too many misdiagnoses. I'm unworthy. I'm one phone call away from the rug getting pulled from under me again. If I walk forward in healing, then everything will fall apart. So I'd rather just self-protect and stay here. Again, I asked God, like, God, replace this crap with the truth because this is not freedom. And he reminded me that who the sun sets free is free indeed. Nobody guilted God into giving you that gift. He chose to do that, and it's a good gift that nobody deserves. And that night, I was like really wrestling with like, okay, God, like I want to receive this gift, like help me to receive this gift. And again, like God in his goodness woke me up in the middle of the night. And it was like very distinctly the Lord. I've always been taught, like, if you get woke up in the middle of the night, pay attention to what time it is. I was like, okay, 3:11 a.m. Wish I was sleeping. And the verse that came to mind was Second Timothy 3:11. And it said, persecutions and sufferings I've endured, yet the Lord rescued me from them all. Again, this was more hope to move forward. I felt like that was like, okay, God distinctly spoke to me twice. Like, I should just be good now. And it was like still stuck. And I was still feeling like deeply unworthy and started confessing all the places I'd felt unworthy in life before. And it unraveled years and years and years of lies that stemmed clear back to like a middle school experience that I had at our church. And again, God filled me with the truth to replace those lies. He said, I saw that and I know that. Those things broke my heart too. And then I got a picture of God just kind of tossing me the keys to the kingdom. And he said, the kingdom's mine simply because I'm his. Like, I'm worthy because I'm his child and I'm chosen, holy, and dearly loved simply because I'm his. And I think that was like the final like breaking point for me where I realized like why I showed up feeling so unworthy for so long. I didn't just wake up one day unworthy. Like, I had picked up lies and felt evidence over and over and over through so many situations over the last decade or 20 years even, that just proved unworthy, unworthy, unworthy. So then when I was to the point where I could get a gift that deserved you to be worthy, I just couldn't do it. And so it wasn't until this point that I could fully accept the gift of healing that God had for me and walk in the freedom that God says he has the power to heal even me. So at this point, I was like remembering back to that verse that God gave me back in December of 2018 that I remember like driving and telling a friend so distinctly, like, hey, God gave me this verse and I'm really sick, so this is going to be great. But I didn't realize, again, that verse that God shared in 2018 and put on my heart wasn't going to come true until May of 2024. But it's true today, and I've never been more confident of like God's goodness and faithfulness in that. And he said, I heard your prayers and I've seen your tears and I'll heal you. And like today is like proof that like doesn't matter how long it takes, doesn't matter the journey you're on, like God is still in the business of healing. He's still in the business of restoring and redeeming. And he does see my pain. He does see my tears. He is walking through those fires with me. And in the end, like God always wins. And so, yeah, I didn't know if that was going to be on earth or in heaven, but today we're like thankful to celebrate that I'll heal you is on earth and that I get to share what God's done in my life with other people and encourage them, because honestly, like it feels like it's been my whole life that it's been like this. But like I wouldn't trade it for anything, because I know like the authority that I walk in now, and I know like the freedom that I walk in now, and I wouldn't have the same intimacy with the Lord. I wouldn't have the same like confidence in the Lord if I hadn't journeyed through all these things. And so does it mean I go looking for trouble? Like absolutely not. Like I avoid pain like the plague just because I've experienced so much of it. But like realizing that like I wouldn't be who I am without that. And it doesn't define me, but it is part of my story, and I get to use that now. Like my hope is that I get to share this story with as many people that are hurting and walking through the trenches, because like there is hope on the other side.